It's like if you're building something that's really going to be impactful, you're going to have to go through a point where you're not going to be happy. You have to really refine your skill to build that skill until you get to the point you're going to have a positive feedback loop. If you invest in any skill for 2 years, commit to one thing for a year, anything. Jordan Peterson says this. Like if you commit to one thing for a year and that's all you focus on, that's all you build, that's all you develop for a year, your life will be different at the end of the other side of it. You don't find your passion, you create your passion.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the 1% Podcast. As always, I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for showing support. And thank you guys for showing love on every single episode. If you guys are here, please like, comment, and subscribe if you are new. We are at WTF Studios today. Thank you for the hospitality.
My favorite studio.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to give Cruz an introduction, but he already got one. I'm here with Cruz. This is part 2. Last time we did this.
Almost part 3. It's like 2.5.
Yeah. I because when I came on your show and then
no, we did the one. I was on your show with Poncho, remember?
Oh, that is right.
Yep. So this is my 3rd time on your show, bro.
And we're gonna circle back to that because there's a question that I do have for you. I have Cruz with me, CEO, producer royalty.
You know what's interesting?
What?
Since the last time I've been on your show, I now go by Daniel.
Really?
I pivoted back to my first name. Yeah, so Cruz is my middle name. Daniel's my first name, obviously. Okay. So I pivoted back to Daniel.
Okay. Well, in that case, I'm calling you Daniel now.
Yeah, call me Daniel.
How are you, Daniel?
I'm doing great, bro. Like, I love talking to you because, like, I come with, like, such a very excited energy and you bring me down to more tranquil, more intentional, more focused.
Yeah?
Yeah, on making sure I get the words right.
What about it do you...
About your energy?
Yeah, because I'm curious to know because obviously I'm not aware of it, but you can sense it. So what about it kind of just sets you down a little bit?
Well, for one, you're very patient with your words. So you will make sure, like, you're a one-take kind of guy. Like, a lot of people who do, speaking on clips and stuff, they'll chop their shit up a bunch to get, like, the perfect words. You're very much like, let me take one word at a time, make sure I'm saying it right, intentional. And yeah, so that's one thing. And then just slow. Like, you take it with a nice pace. Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. So you're doing well.
I'm doing great.
You are about to graduate this month. How has that been for you? And what has these past 8 years that you've been in school, what have they taught you?
Graduating is a little anticlimactic for me because I am experienced like I've been pretty checked out of school for the last like year and a half, 3 years. I have not been fully checked into law school like at all compared to other law students because my highest leverage activities are all taking place outside of law school. So what I mean by that is like compared to most lawyers or law students, like they don't know where they want to be. I came in this laser focused on where I wanted to be, and I knew what I needed to do to get there. So law school gets me nowhere closer to my goals, being in law school, the schoolwork itself. So I've been checked out for a while, and so graduating, it feels a little bit, it's not like, woof, I'm finally done. I've been kind of done. So, but I will say with my perspective on just college in general, like, people have their mixed perspectives on going to college. Obviously the consensus nowadays is it's a waste of time, waste of money. And I would say for the most part, that could be true. However, going to school, exploring your interests, tapping into new cultures, and not having to be in a cycle of chasing a check, like paying for your living expenses is a valuable thing. Much more valuable than being at home and getting caught in like a rat race of being in that cycle. Mm-hmm. So I would say that I learned a lot by going to school for 8 years, and I wouldn't trade it at all. And I think the better route would be to be mentored by somebody and to see somebody that you look up to and work for free for a long time. Like when I was first getting started in the music industry, I started law school and I was like, all right, let me spend my first year fully getting entrenched in the music industry. And I worked for free and I paid a shit ton of money to work because I was working in Philly. And I think that more people should take that route as well too. Mm-hmm. Like investing in experience and being willing to pay money for experience to learn from somebody.
So in Philly, what exactly was happening at that time?
So I was working at this company called Rec Philly, which is a co-working space and agency for creatives. And I worked at the front desk. And I would check members in to the co-working space. And it was so valuable for me because every single day I would meet new people and I would work on my pitch. I think, especially as an entrepreneur, entrepreneurs pitch ideas into existence. Your job is to go out there and have an idea and tell people that idea and play with that idea and refine it until it turns into something. Mm-hmm. So as working in the front desk every day, I would pitch myself, I would pitch my vision, I would pitch Rec Philly, and it gave me like experience to actually refine my pitch for myself, but also just having that energy to sell somebody in like an idea. I had to sell people on this space. So like I would get to meet so many new people, and that was an experience for me that I think is invaluable. So I think that's what's really has been able to move the needle for me pretty quickly, is my ability to kind of like sell people on an idea and to refine the way I pitch things.
How often did you maybe get rejected in that idea? Like, was there a lot of rejection that you saw? And like,
I'm going to be completely honest. The angle that I've taken with my career is a blend of two worlds that are widely respected. The legal side, everybody kind of was like, oh shit, you're going into law. That's dope. But also music. So it's like I'm blending like the cool shit with like the shit that people respect. So I never, every time I tell somebody like kind of what I'm doing, or more so than than anything else I can imagine, people are like, wow, that's dope. You know what I mean? So that's not my experience, just if I'm being honest. Yeah.
What do you think that you did differently than the other students, besides having a company and probably majority focusing your time on your company, maybe more than school? But what do you think that you did differently than other students at your school?
So much, like everything. I think I approached the legal side different than anybody that's ever approached the legal side. So for me, if I had to articulate it in a very short way, I went after clients instead of after jobs. So for me, I understood that the most high leverage thing I could do is having access to clients. Most people are trying to work for somebody else and get into their system. I was like, how do I build my own system? So the way I did that was by going out into the creative communities and meeting people where they were, meeting the creatives where they were, and understanding them and getting tapped into the community organically. Versus other law students, what they do is they'll go to networking events with other lawyers, and don't get me wrong, I do all that type of stuff too, and then try to pitch themselves to the other lawyers in other law firms in order to get a job instead of creating their own job. So that's the angle that I took it.
So if I'm a podcast host, right? I'm trying to pitch myself to somebody, and I want them to be on my show. What do you think would be the right way to pitch? Knowing my services and knowing my skills. You can apply this to the law space, but I just want a general consensus or general idea. How do you pitch yourself to somebody? Without asking for too much, without trying to overstep, and being able to get the right amount to be able to say, this is what I could provide for you, and this is why it would be a good transaction.
The best pitches have with or without you energy. This is what I'm doing, and this is where I'm trying to go. You fit into this, and this is how. Do you want to come along? That's how you pitch an idea. That's how you approach things. You either approach things from, there's this analogy that's like the buyer versus the seller. When I enter a social interaction, I approach it as this. The buyer is somebody who they enter in, they walk in, and they don't need to buy anything. They're kind of glancing around. They're like trying to, see what they want, and they have an idea, but like they're not pressed to buy anything. The seller is like, I need to make a sale. They're willing to lower their standards and try to compromise themselves and convince somebody else of something. So I try to always approach things as the buyer. Like I'm not trying to convince you of anything. This is what I'm doing. This is what this is how I'm approaching it. So I guess to circle back, that was kind of like a tangent, I guess. But if you're trying to pitch, I would just say, with or without you energy, just have that in mind. Like, be like, this is what I'm doing. Do you want to come along? When you seem desperate, when you seem like you're relying on somebody else, like that's when you kind of get other people to not be interested. You know what I mean? So when I go to a networking thing, I'm not like when people talk to me that are like kind of above me, or like they're more experienced than me, like they're not getting the sense from me that I'm trying to look for a job, which makes us more equal and makes us have more of an organic kind of conversation. You know what I mean? So yeah, so I don't ask for people really for anything. You know what I mean? Even like going into something and being like, yo, let me get your contact in a way that's kind of like forcing it kind of makes it a little like if you're somebody that's outside and you're doing what you're supposed to do in the music industry specifically, you're gonna run into people more than once. If you're kind of being thirsty to connect with somebody, then it kind of implies that you're not, you're out of place.
You think that just implies in the music industry, or you think that's in every industry?
I wouldn't say it's in every industry. I think more so in the music industry. That's the industry I'm most familiar with. I can't. You asked about podcasting in particular.
Yeah.
Music industry is the most collaborative industry I can imagine. So that I think it's mostly in that industry. But yeah, I think it's just something to keep in mind. If you do a good job pitching or explaining yourself to somebody else, they'll want to connect with you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
That's interesting. I'll definitely take that with me. Because it does make sense though. If I think desperation is the way I see desperation is it means that you're lacking something. And if you live in abundance, if you're living in the fruitful magnetic energy of the universe, of God, whatever you may believe in, then you're all of a sudden going to just attract all these opportunities. You're going to attract these people, and people can sense that. And I've been able to sense that in other people. So if somebody who isn't as up in the food chain as other people, I can just only imagine what other people in the food chain can be able to, they can sniff that out in like 2 seconds. They could just be able to take one look at you or listen to you for 1 second and just hear like this person is in desperation.
For sure.
But that's just a gem that for anybody that's listening, if you want to try to live within and getting more opportunities, you have to attract those. You have to be able to live as if you are already there, or just live in an abundant state. It's so hard to explain living in an abundance, but it's just knowing that, to your point, if you already believe or if you already know in the direction that you're heading, you're kind of already living in this positive essence that people could be able to, let me go check out what Daniel's doing. Let me go check out what Avi's doing.
For sure. I'm big on that word abundance. Just trying to, like, when I envision my life, I just imagine every area of my life is full, is what I'm going for. And when one of them lowers, whether that's your girlfriend, whether that's maybe somebody in your family, isn't doing too well, like, if you have other areas maxed out, then that's abundance, and that's when you'll be okay either way. So I'm big on that. Yeah.
Within having that energy to know what you bring to the table, essentially, how have you been able to say no as of recently? Because the phone call that we had yesterday, you said that you've been having to say no a lot. And how has that been for you? And what have you felt within that, the power to say no?
That's another thing I really do differently from most law students. And I think this applies to not just law students at all, but like people who, especially students, they want to experience everything. And I think there's a time for that. Like when you're first getting started, you don't know what you want to do. You try everything. I'm going to do this club and be the president of this and also have this internship and then also have all these things where I get to traveling. And like that, there's a time for that. But at a certain point, the difference, champions have like a very narrow focus. They know what they want. They have high goals for themselves. And when you have high goals for yourself, that becomes a filter for everything in your life. So I have my goals. I know what I'm trying to accomplish. I'm very narrow on that things. And decisions become pretty easy when you know what you're trying to accomplish. For instance, if I'm trying to lose 5 pounds in a year versus 100 pounds in a year, my everyday decisions are going to be, I can eat this burger. I can eat a burger, 5 burgers a week if I'm trying to lose 5 pounds in a year. But if I'm trying to lose 100 pounds, I got to be pretty tight on my routine. There's only certain things that I can do. I have to do certain things. So it's like the bigger goals that you set for yourself, the easier decisions become. So I set very big goals for myself, and saying no becomes pretty easy nowadays. And so I try to, life becomes easier when you have bigger goals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's something that, there's a saying that I saw. I grew up personally as a preconditioned people pleaser. So for me to say no, as I've gotten older, I've had to be able to step into that acceptance of saying no. And I guess one analogy that has helped me, and this might be a gem for you, is if it's not a fuck yes, then it's a no.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're offering me an opportunity, or there might be something that could be able to potentially further my life, if I'm thinking about it too much and it's not a fuck yes, where I'm absolutely dialed and absolutely 100% locked into it, then you probably shouldn't go.
Yeah.
And whether it's an opportunity, whether it's an experience, or something that you're really not kind of you're on the fence about it, you know, and you're not, there's something that's resisting you. Maybe that resistance should be a protection, you know, maybe that resistance should be something that you might have to be more mindful about, or maybe reflect upon. Well, why am I saying no? Or why am I even saying yes to this? Is it because I genuinely want to go here? Or is it because I'm conditioning myself to please you, and knowing that after I go to this event or during this event, I'm not going to be happy. And I'm doing it out of your fulfillment, not out of mine. And to me, that's like the highest form of self-love is, number one, not only being able to say yes, but number two, being able to understand your own boundaries within yourself, and being able to be comfortable with saying fuck no or fuck yes.
Mm-hmm. And saying no to something is really saying yes to whatever matters most to you. Like,
it's a gem.
Yeah. It's like when you say yes to something, you're locking yourself into a commitment. When you say no, you have flexibility. You can make a last second decision. You still have options but when you say yes to something, especially months, I try to avoid saying yes to something months ahead of time.
Yeah.
I try to leave my yeses to the last second, like, because unless it's like really important and I know that's going to be the priority.
Sure.
Like, yeah.
This is like, I'm seeing. It's beautiful to see, because that first podcast that we talked about, I knew we were going to come back to that first podcast that we shot. You initially said that you have trouble with people pleasing in that episode.
Yeah.
And you wanted to make others happy.
Yeah.
And now it's like a full evolution of a year later.
Yeah.
Different circumstances, different environment, different experiences that are now led you to say no more.
For sure. And a big part of that is just, first of all, always in the top of my head, you can't pour from an empty cup. I know that's a popular saying, but like, I think about that shit all the time. And in some way, that saying is a justification for being selfish. I think I'm somebody that wants to pour into everybody, for sure. But the best way I can pour into other people is by filling my cup. You can't pour into other people unless you have like I can pour with my little splash or something, but I need to invest in myself, and I need to build whatever I'm building in order if I want to have the maximum impact. So it became easy for me to be more selfish and not to, like, being a people pleaser, I think, is an excuse to not, build something that's really making an impact. It's being focused on the urgent instead of the important. So that's a distinction that I've made in my life that has been really, really important for me. It's like, what's urgent is usually not important. Usually. The important stuff, and by important, what I'm using important to mean is the things that will have the most impact. Those things take a lot of time that you're going to invest in. And like, most people get stuck in this cycle of like I've learned like the producer royalty DMs, my DMs are crazy all the time. And like, I realized I was spending, one day I spent like 5 hours answering DMs. And I was like, okay, cool. Like I'm investing in all these clients, helping all these people out. But like, it's just getting me stuck in a rat race that I'm just going to always have to fulfill. If I really want to have the most impact, I need to build out something bigger. And that takes a lot of clarity and space. And when your mind's when you're focused on like, all right, this thing, now this thing, now this thing, now this thing, now this thing, you're not building something unique. You're just focused from one thing to the next. Like you got to have space and time. So yeah, I try to focus on the important, not the urgent, for sure.
That's a gem. That's a bar.
Yeah.
I guess something else that I want to mention since that first podcast is that you weren't as loud with your goals as you are now. Like, I guess in a sense, the best analogy I can use is that you let your nuts hang. That's something that you do now. What was that realization for you to be able to say, you know what, I'm just gonna live vicariously within myself? And you went literally from Cruz to Daniel.
Yeah, that was because I started getting more known online, which I wasn't gonna make my name Cruz Hernandez, and so I was like, and everybody would reach out to me, hey Daniel. I'm like, I'm not gonna correct them every time and say I go by Cruz, so that's why I'm back to Daniel.
But I mean, listen, there's a minute difference in that though.
Yeah,
you went from somebody that everybody knew as Cruz to now Daniel.
Yeah,
where I see that a step further. I see that as an evolution.
It's definitely an evolution.
I'm not a kid anymore per se, you know, that I'm now going to step in my name, and I'm not going to hide behind a middle name. I'm stepping into my first name.
I wouldn't say that that's why, but I am somebody that tries to look. I do try to look for symbols and shit and lean into narrative. So that's one I do lean into. Like when I talk to my past self, I do talk to Cruz. I don't talk to Daniel, just because I think it's very useful to have two different names for yourself. So like if I'm talking to the version I'm trying to detach myself from, I talk to myself a lot. So I say Cruz.
Okay.
If I'm talking to the new version of myself, I say Daniel. So I do think that's a distinction that's important, but also one that is I'm kind of fabricating for a narrative.
So what was that realization for you that made you want to be so loudly about your goals? Because not many people are like that, and there's two sides to that coin, right? The first coin is that it seemed as arrogant, seemed as cocky, it seemed as this guy's full of himself. He has an incredible ego.
Yeah.
And then the second side is, well, maybe he just needs to be his number one fan, and he just needs to hold himself accountable and give himself this time to be loud, because he knows that if he doesn't meet that deadline or he doesn't meet this mark, then now he may look like a fool to the rest of the public.
Yeah. And that's a big part of it. Like part of the reason why I try to have loud goals. Part of the reason why I try to have loud goals is because it's a form of accountability. When you tell everybody your goal, all right, now everybody knows I'm not just keeping this promise to myself. I'm trying to keep this promise to everybody else too. So it's like, that's a form of accountability for sure, but it also makes it more real. Like you can have something in your head, but until you put it out there, it's just in your head. Like so that's a big part of it for sure. But it also inspires people too. So it's like when you're loud about your goals and you make them very high and people see the vision that you're trying to build, it's easy to bring people on board. If nobody knows where you're trying to go, how are they going to see themselves into what you're trying to build? So I just realized that the louder I became about what I'm trying to build, the easier it is to get people on board. The Producer Royalty team, I have so many people on my team right now. And all these people organically fell into what we were building. I didn't have to look for anybody. And a big part of that is because we were so loud about what we're trying to do. And it makes it easy for other people. Like I think the CEO's job is supposed to be having a vision so big that other people see themselves on and they're trying to attach themselves to it. So that's really what we're trying to do. And it makes it very easy. The louder you are, I know a lot of people are like, I've heard people on my show have even said that like, oh, I want to be low key about my goals because other people might try to sabotage them, and you know who's watching and who's going to take your ideas, blah blah blah. If you're living in, I feel abundant with my ideas. I'm not holding on to them. I don't feel like I'm in scarcity mode. Like I have this one idea, so I put all my ideas out there. I share them all, And if people want to support, they come along, they introduce themselves. And there's going to be people, you're going to ostracize people in your community. There's going to be people that follow you like, oh yeah, he's being loud, he's being arrogant, he's doing X, Y, and Z. But I know what we're building is helping people. I'm not hurting people in any way by being loud and being confident. Like, I'm not. So that's how I feel about that. And I don't see anything wrong with it.
What has your team meant to you?
My team?
Yeah.
What has it meant to me?
And how have they attributed to your success?
Different parts of my team. So the main service that Producer Royalties offers is helping producers get paid for their placements. If you haven't been paid for a song, we reach out to the labels, we negotiate with them, we'll take the song down if we have to, and we help you get paid for the placements. That's the main way I'm making money. That's the only way Producer Royalties is making money right now is through that service. And it's a lot. Like when I was talking about the urgent, like being on all these email chains and having 70 songs that we're trying to clear at once and having this whole list, like I wouldn't be able to build out a company to focus on the content, to focus on law school, to focus on myself, to focus on so finding my partners, shout out A1 Music Group and Dan Montano and Will Boyette. I really appreciate them. I wouldn't be able to be doing what I was doing and scale the company if I was focused on the rat race of trying to actually like service the client. So it wouldn't be possible to scale. It wouldn't be. I would just be, I would have 70 clients max and that would be it. So I needed the team for that. Now, having people in my life that I can bounce ideas off of and are willing to listen and endure in my team, I think a lot of the most valuable people in my life aren't people that are working for me in that or partners with me on a business sense. Like my team, the people who are most valuable in my life are usually people who like I can send these 6 a.m. texts to when I wake up and I have an idea and I'm inspired by it and I put it out to the world and they're bouncing, they're coming back with me and it's like versus those people in my life that like I will do that too and they don't answer it for the entire day or they say cool, like they don't. So I feel like the most valuable people in my life are ones that are reflective and contribute to the vision. Like I feel like my vision and personality and developing myself is the most valuable asset that like Producer Royalty has. So the people who are able to help me with that side are the most valuable. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I've been trying to build a team. If you were to give me advice, how would you go about building a team?
I think just being loud so people know you. So it's like, if you think about Alex Hormozi talks about this a lot and Gary Vee, like if you're trying to build a company team, the more the public knows about your values and what you stand for and likes you as a person, the more people that will want to work with for you. It's very easy for Alex Hormozi to build out a team because everybody wants to work for him because he's Alex Hormozi. So I think the more vocal you are about what you believe and what you stand for, the easier it is to build a team around you. I think that's just the main thing. Like, I think that it's like, just circling back to what I said, like that's why it's been easy to get people is because you're just kind of loud about what you believe in and feeling confident. And that comes from having a confidence of like, this is what it is. And having people that are receptive to it, but also a lot of journaling. And thinking about it. If I'm stuck in the urgent, I don't know what are my values. I don't know what my values are if I'm stuck in the urgent and just always trying to do, all right, this, now that, like, so.
How has your evolution of your company, how has that increased your confidence?
No shit, bro. I mean, it's like an idea is one thing, but when you have tangible results that like people can look at, like, oh shit, like he's building something special. I mean, it makes everything easier. That's for sure. Definitely makes everything easier. I mean, I feel like it just goes without say. Having something that's like, yo, look, I built this. And people can look into it and you don't have to explain it. Mm-hmm. And they've probably seen it, especially in like the music industry, most people have seen Producer Royalty or they'll look at it and be like, oh shit, you got a ton of mutual, like it makes it easy. You know what I mean? So
that's interesting. And I guess the way I think about it is that if I wanted to pitch the ideas to other people to get like an editor or get somebody that could be an outreach or outsource, in the podcast game, I'm still relatively fresh. Mm-hmm. I'm only 2 years in the game. I'm not really established in terms of like follower count, in terms of like YouTube subscribers. We just hit 400 subscribers the other day, so shout out to that.
Facts.
But in terms of like TikTok, in terms of Instagram, Like, people know who I am from my personal TikTok. You know, that's who they know me. That's how they know me. But they don't know Avi, the podcast host. They just know Avi, the motivational content.
Mm-hmm.
So how can I be able to, they see the content that I post on my personal, right? There's the numbers on my socials speak for itself, but in terms of established podcast host, I'm not that. And I'll be honest, I'm not. I'm still getting better with this interviewing. I'm still getting better having conversations.
So much every week, every month, bro. For real.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I received that.
I know.
But I want to be able to have other people believe in the 1% better vision, right? Becoming this 1% version of themselves. So what would you tell me and somebody that's not established, but has the vision and has the plan on how he's going to get there and has seen some pretty big guests on his show, some photographers that have been on the New York Times and some other people, content creators, podcast hosts. What would you say to me to give me advice, give me game on trying to outsource or create a bigger community that can help get to that goal?
I know we had this conversation off camera and I'm going to repeat a lot of it, but like, you're in a lane that is hard to break through, a lot harder than what I'm building. And like, you are a much better podcast host than I am. I could say that, and I really feel that with all my heart and soul. I genuinely believe that.
Thank you.
It's just going to be a lot harder for you because the boat that you're in matters more than how hard you row. So it's like, for me, I'm in a boat that is not completely underserved, and it's easy to break through because the angle that I'm coming at it from is not done before. When I tell somebody like what I'm trying to build, it's just kind of like they've never heard of anything like that. So it's tough. I want to emphasize again, the boat that you're in matters more in terms of like the outcome, the likelihood that you'll succeed than how hard you row. So it's like, you are and substitute how hard you row, maybe how good of a rower you are, I guess. Like, because you're a great rower and you have great conversations and you bring some great people on. So I think that if I'm talking to somebody else, because I think I have a lot of confidence in the direction of what you're going, if you stay on path and you continue to build and you continue to upgrade the aesthetic, you continue shooting in aesthetics. Like, I think especially with podcasts, like the aesthetic is probably like one of the most important things. So it's 100%. Like, if you keep that going and you have good guests on, like, I think it's just gonna organically blow up pretty good, especially with a familiar set like WTF Media.
Yeah.
So yeah, if I'm speaking to you directly, that would be my advice, is like probably, but I think you might know better than I do. But if I was speaking to somebody else, I would just think like, I would let them, I'm somebody that's a proponent of, when you're first breaking into something, take the easier route. Don't try to find something and niche down as much. I always talk about niches because I'm such a believer in like finding something that's so niche, that's not being done before, that has a community that's like collaborative, for one, that shares things with each other. And yeah, it's just not being done before. So as much as if I'm speaking to the general audience, just try to find something that hasn't been done before. You know what I mean? And it's not that, like, if you had to articulate the 1% podcast vision, what would you say?
I would say it's, the vision that I have for it is sitting down with people that, number one, want to grow 1% better in their life. Number two, have astronomically big goals. And that's where that's a little bit of where it's at right now. But where I would want it to go is where I'm talking to some of the greatest thinkers of our time, of what social media knows, of maybe not what social media knows, of just people that are, to me, are incredibly interesting. And if I have them on my show, they can be like, I learned something from this. You know, every time I listen to, and I don't want to compare my show to his, but obviously his is way, way better than mine in his state right now. the Diary of a CEO, every time I listen to an episode, I always learn something. Like I just listened to Jimmy Carr today. He's a comedian and he dropped this episode. I think he's a British comedian.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually wrote down something that he said. If you haven't felt imposter syndrome in the past 12 to 18 months, you're doing something wrong.
I love that.
And I listened to it. I'm like, I'm on the treadmill this morning, you know, listening to it. I'm like, wow. Where I always think that I'm not in that percentile, or at 24 years old, I'm not creating something that's valuable or meaningful. And I can't tell you how many times I've already felt imposter syndrome past 12 to 18 months. Like I'm creating my own website. I'm creating my own newsletter. And I'm only 24 years old and people are probably looking at me like, who the hell is this guy? You know, what life has he lived to be able to feel accredited enough, or to feel that he can be able to provide something to the world at 24 years old. And every day in the situation that I'm in the environment that I'm exposed to every day, you know, in Brooklyn, seeing what I see on, you know, a daily basis, by no stretch of the imagination do I feel confident at all times. Like I said, I'm just a 24-year-old kid that, you know, every 2 weeks, he gets like, what, $200, $300 in his bank account. And I know some people that are podcast hosts that, you know, are making thousands of dollars, or I know people that are my age that they're making way more money than I am, or all of this. But I guess the thing that I believe that separates me is that I'm starting to live my life as if I'm a CEO. I wake up in the morning, been starting to get up in the morning at 6 a.m., going to the gym, going to class, going to school. Like today, I was so damn tired. I fell asleep in one of my classes. But knowing that I had to shoot this podcast, I had to be able to make sure that I brought it.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, what I envision with the 1% podcast is collaborating with intelligent thinkers, people that are incredibly interesting, that have creativity, that are curious, that are successful, that could be able to give game to other people, but as well as myself.
Mm-hmm.
And it's building a community that even when they feel like the odds are against them, all they have to focus on is just becoming 1% better every day, and just focusing on that one thing and just honing on it. What would your version of today's self thank you for tomorrow? Like what would I do today that could help me become a better version for tomorrow?
This is why I have so much faith in the direction that you're going. Is like, even though the conversations, you could put it into a box of like, all right, self-improvement, self-growth, psychology, things like that. Like you, Avi, like shows like Diary CEO, people are investing in the host. Like it's not that the conversations are really unique because like he just understands people in such a deep level. And it's like you can't necessarily articulate it in a way like I can. I'm talking about the legal side of being a producer and helping producers get paid. Like that, like when we talk about if I'm giving somebody advice, how do you break in? I would say choose something super niche. If I want to say how do you build like longevity in something that like you are very passionate about, and you feel, I would say it's going to take you a lot longer, but you're developing skills that transcend into every area of your life. You being able to dig deep into people's stories, to understand them, and to really connect with them, and to build I'm sure you know you've learned this by now. When you host a good interview and you open up a part of somebody that they haven't even really tapped into, when you see them, it's not like, hey, what's up, bro? It's like, yo, what is good, bro? It's so nice to see you. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure you're experiencing that. So it's like, I think just podcasting in general, people who are interested in getting into podcasts, like it's skills that transcend into every area of your life.
Yeah.
So
it's people skills.
Yeah.
That's the way I think that's the way that it correlates. It's people skills.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I have another question for you. Visualizing and being able to use your imagination, how has that helped your business and how has that helped your career?
Just visualizing in general, how has it helped my career?
Because we know the using your imagination and visualizing things in the goals that you have for yourself are so grandesque and so massive that to other people, they may seem out of reach.
Yeah.
And there was I forgot what clip it was, but there was something that you posted. It might have been on your private story where one of your professors was talking to you. And he was saying how well of a job that you are doing and how like you have this path and you created this path for yourself.
The context of that clip was I was completely behind on my classwork for my pre-bar class, and he set up a call with me because I was behind on it, and he wants to make sure that people are on the path that they're going to be okay in the long run. So I was telling him like, yeah, these are my goals. This is what I'm trying to achieve. And like, I'm just trying to, I'm trying to get by because the schoolwork is not really getting me where I'm trying to go, but I'm very clear on what I'm trying to do. So he saw that and he was like, well, you seem like you're somebody who knows where you're going. So I'm not going to hawk you and try to, get you on the right path because you're probably on the right path. Just make sure you're doing what you have to do. So to answer just how has visualizing helped me get where I want to.
Yeah. And how has that been for like telling that to other people? How has been telling your goals to other people that, I mean, on social media it's different because they all know you and they respect you and they appreciate what you're doing and they love the vision or may not love the vision that you have. Mm-hmm. How has that been telling that to other people?
I've certainly learned that you can't express when you have really high goals and you're actually making strides to actually achieving them and they're in the near future. I certainly learned that I can't express them to everybody. Now, I'm going to use my situation as a case study. When I'm talking to other lawyers about my goals who are like 30 years old and they work in music, and just getting into music as a lawyer is people flex that. They'll be making $60,000 a year but working in music, and they'll flex that. They'll feel good and because they get to work in music. And I do think it's admirable, and I'm not trying to take anything away from them. But when I tell them what I'm building and the angle that I'm coming in at and how I'm already on their level, like they start to they get kind of like weird. Like they just kind of get like it, because it kind of sheds a light on like, are they doing something wrong? So when what you're building, like, all right, so I had DJ FMCT, who's one of the he was signed to Lil Durk. He's a producer on my last show. He was talking about when he's talking to other producers that are below him, quote unquote, below him, he doesn't really flex that he signed to Lil Durk because it just kind of makes it kind of like make them feel a little like you don't need to flex that to them. Yeah. But if you're talking to somebody that's in another industry, then you could talk about that because they're not going to feel intimidated by that. So I've just kind of learned that like if I'm talking to somebody that like what I'm doing is actually a reflection on them not doing enough or being below me or blah, blah, then I don't really talk about it. You know what I mean? And your question was, I guess, more so can you repeat your question?
Yeah. How has your visualization and imagination and expressing that to other people, how has that been for you?
I really enjoy it, but I really enjoy it. And I do test the waters with people. Like I was kind of just implying, it's like certain people just aren't reflective of it. And they kind of make you, if I have an idea I'm really excited about and I give it to somebody, it's the first time I'm articulating it. It's the first time I'm articulating it to myself. Like having it in your head is one thing, but when you put it out there and somebody's across the table, they're the first person to receive it and you see it just kind of land like on a dead face, on a dead body, on a dead tone. It makes you in some way feel like, all right, this isn't a good idea. So when I have a really good idea, one I'm really passionate about, the first person on the other side of that idea is really important. I'm not going to express this new idea I'm really excited about and this new vision on somebody who is not going to be receptive of it. Your passion is your fuel. Like whatever your passion is the fuel. Like I'm big on energy, not in like a pseudoscience, but like I want to feel energized. Like I'm very big on that. So I'm very deliberate on who in my life is giving me energy, making me more excited. If you're not making me more excited, then you're probably going to be less in my life. So to answer your question more specifically, my vision and who I articulate it to is reserved. At least the first time until I'm confident in that vision, I'm reserving it for people who I know are going to be reflective and contribute to it and help me refine it until I'm confident in it. I've never really thought about that before, but that's how I feel about it. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
It does, right?
Because it's like when you tell somebody good news and they're kind of like, oh, good job. Rather than like, oh my God, like that's so great, you know?
Yeah.
It's the expression and I mean, maybe that's just not your tribe, you know? Maybe those are the people the circle that you're not supposed to be around. If you're expressing an idea and expressing a thought and there's no feedback or there's no expression or there's no emotion, maybe that's not your tribe.
And you're a lot less likely to tell it to the next person.
Yeah.
If you tell it, I try to create positive feedback loops for myself. So if I'm expressing an idea, like whatever it is, I just try to create a positive feedback. I do something, I get a reward for it, or something good happens for it. So you got to create those for yourself in whatever way that takes form. Yeah.
That's in Atomic Habits, actually. I'm not sure if you read Atomic Habits.
For sure.
If somebody doesn't know their passion, as a lot of people in our age range may not know their passions, what advice would you give to somebody that's maybe seeking purpose or seeking passion that doesn't have it yet?
You don't find your passion, you create your passion. Whatever you do, whatever you decide to do, when you first start working on it, you're not going to have that positive feedback loop. You're going to start it. You're not going to be able to, if you're trying to learn the piano, you're not going to be able to play that song that makes you, oh, I love this. You're not going to like doing anything until you get good at it. That's just the reality of most things. So first thing is just like, to go back on energy, feeling energized, I would just say, find what makes you feel energized. Not necessarily what makes you feel good, but when I do this, I feel more energy. So I would just lean into that, first of all. And then you got to stick with something until you start to get the positive feedback. Could be money, could be girls, it could be fitness, it could be anything. It could literally be anything. But you gotta stick with it until you have that. And I think it's just really important. Like my friends who, we're at 25 now. We're at the age of 25, 24,
I'm at the 25, yeah.
Yeah. Like the people who graduated college that are now in the workforce and they've been in it for 2-3 years and they're just feeling that. I see them every time. They're feeling drained. They want to stop. They want to meet up and not talk about anything but work. It's cool. I guess I understand that, but it's like, I don't know. I don't personally, I don't want to live that type of life. You know what I mean? So I just really want to lean into what, like, they seem like they're having life sucked out of them and they have to escape. Like if you're in that, like you're doing something, you feel like you have to escape from it. You're just probably not the right thing. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. You got to find a problem that you care about solving. If you're in life and something bothers you, really think about that. Like, what is that? Why this thing bothers me? And if your feed is all memes, if you're on Instagram, your feed is all memes, like I honestly don't even want to hear it at that point. It's like, well, you're not going to you need inspiration of some sort. Like, it's like.
But what if somebody's not happy with their life? Like, what if somebody looks at their life and they're not happy with it? Because listen, I love podcasting. I love that. But listen, it does right now. And it doesn't pay the bills, or social media doesn't pay the bills right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be honest, I'm not 100% happy with my life right now. I mean, maybe practicing more gratitude could definitely help with that, right? Writing down the things that I'm grateful for, just being in a state of presence or sitting in a state of solitude and just reflecting on maybe where you've been. I mean, it happens to me. But what if somebody's not happy with their life? How can they find that spark if somebody's not happy with their life?
If they're not happy with their life.
Yeah.
That's such a tough one. So how can they find that spark if they're just not happy with their life? Shit, bro, I don't know. That's so case dependent. I don't know. I think that is helpful for me to think about is like, you have to give yourself permission to not be happy. It's like, if you're building something that's really going to be impactful, you're going to have to go through a point where you're not going to be happy. You have to really refine your skill to build that skill until you get to the point you're going to have a positive feedback loop. If you invest in any skill for 2 years, commit to one thing for a year, anything. Jordan Peterson says this. Like, if you commit to one thing for a year and that's all you focus on, that's all you build, that's all you develop for a year, your life will be different at the end of the other side of it.
Are you
2
happy?
years.
Are you happy?
I feel like yes, for sure. I'm definitely, well, I am not as happy as I could be. And I'm okay with that.
Why?
because I'm in a building stage. I'm building my dream life and I need to put in the work to get there. I feel so confident that the future version of myself is the happiest person I can imagine. But right now I'm in a building stage. Right now I'm finishing law school. I don't want to be in law school. I don't want to be investing in making money and focusing on making money right now. That's not what I want to be doing necessarily. I'm in a stage right now, and I have this conversation with myself a lot, is like, you're in a season of no. You're in a season of committing to things that are building for the future. So I'm giving myself permission to not be as happy as I could be. I could right now be the happiest person in the world. I feel that, or feel that way. But I'm in a building stage right now. So we're gonna have. I want to have seasons in my life. I want to have seasons of commitment, seasons of enjoying, seasons of relationships, seasons of exploring. But right now, you're catching me in the season of like, all right, I'm in grind mode. I have a hard deadline. I need to be in a certain place by the summer, which is like, yeah. So,
you think setting deadlines adds extra pressure and extra?
Fuck yes. Deadlines are like so like the problem with most people is they don't have any type of deadline. They don't have any reason to be where they want to be. Like it's just like it's on the someday shelf. It's over there. It's like I want to get there, but I don't have any type of deadline. What's dope about being in school is you have some type of deadline. Like there's deadlines at every stage. I have to do this by the next year, blah, blah, blah. So right now I'm in a deadline. I'm going to graduate with a lot of fucking debt. I need to be able to pay that debt, right? Like everybody knows this. Like I have a deadline. I need to get there. I knew this for the last 3 years. I need to build a system that makes at least 6 figures. Now I'm trying to go for a lot of figures by the end of next year. Like, so I knew that. And that was always on my mind. It's always sitting. I have a deadline. I need to make X amount of dollars and build a system, build a brand that has impact. That deadline is part of my driving force. Otherwise, I would just kind of be like, okay, like when am I going to get it done? Right now, I'm building this producer royalty course. I have a very strict deadline for this. I have to get this shit done by like 2 weeks from now. And I've been fucking grinding on that shit nonstop. And it's giving me so much purpose. I need to get there. If I didn't have that deadline, then so you have to create deadlines for yourself. If you don't have any deadlines, create some deadlines. I don't know how you're going to do it, but
tell us about that course. A little bit. Don't you don't have to, unveil it, but
I'm unveiling it right now. So the producer royalty course is going to break down everything that producers need to know after they land the placement. Every producer wants to get a placement. Placement is when you get a song with a major artist. What do you do after you get a placement? Producer royalty was designed to answer that question and to give producers the service that they need to get through that. So the producer royalty course I break down everything that I know into a 7-step framework. I'm going to study for the bar exam this summer. So I need to step away from my company. So I designed this course to replace myself. So the producers have everything that they need to know to get through that process on their own. I'm sharing everything that I know. Some people would say I'm putting myself out of business. Now,
that's why you created a good team, though.
That's why
you created.
There's no replacing the relationships. My company has relationships too, so it's like but us asking for $5,000 is not the same as a producer asking for $5,000. They have no placements and nobody know. Like it's not the same thing at all. Yeah. Us asking for it's like. So the producer royalty course is breaking everything down. So like I said about the producer placement process, and I need to have some passive income while I'm studying for the bar exam this summer. So that's what it's about, and I'm excited about it. And it's been fun creating, but now I'm just like it's fun creating things, but then when you're finishing them, it's when it's like, oh fuck, I have to finish this product. So yeah. I'm in that finishing stage.
So something about deadlines thought came to mind. Do you ever feel like, all right, you get 6 figures, 7-figure business, 8-figure business. Do you ever feel like it'll be enough for you?
For sure. I don't chase money. I chase opportunity. So I'm not like, yeah, for sure. I don't think about the money like that. I just know I have to think about money right now because I'm gonna have loans. So that's the only reason why I'm even bringing up money right now. Yeah.
Like success in general. Do you think there will ever be enough success for you?
I'm big on, so when I set goals, I don't set a hard goal. I set a horizon goal. So a lot of people have a North Star. I have this one thing, I'm chasing this North Star, and that's giving me all the purpose in my life. I don't have a North Star. I have more of like a feeling, an emotion, like things that I'm trying to experience around. And the benefit of that is when you don't ever get there. It gets a little bit clearer as you approach it, but you're never there. Like when people, let's say there's what's it called? Gold medalists, when they get that gold medal, they enter this big depression. I forget, there's a name for it, but I don't remember what it's called. But like when they get the gold medal, they're depressed because that was their life goal. But then they're there, and then now I'm fucking depressed. Like, what is my goal now? I don't have a reason to live. If you set $1 million a year, then you get $1 million. Like Steve Bartlett said that was one of his goals. And like then he got there and he's like, he was depressed after that. So I'm not big on setting, this is my one goal. I try to keep my goals a little bit fuzzy.
Gary Vee talks about it because he talks about always trying to buy the jets. And he knows that may never be something that is obtainable in his lifetime. But it's the bar setting and the constant pursuit of that dream that allows him to keep chasing it, because that he knows that he might not get it. But he set a goal so astronomically high that it's like literally shooting for the stars. You may never get there, but it's the process and it's the constant chase and the pursuit of getting the jets that just thrills him.
Yeah.
And he even expressed it like, I know if I buy the jets, I'm going to be so incredibly depressed because that has been the thing that I've wanted to achieve. Mm-hmm. And then after doing some reflection, it's like, I talked about it in my last podcast episode, but it's like, I wouldn't want to have the best podcast in the world because you're sitting on that. Like Joe Rogan's sitting on that. Who else could Joe Rogan talk to? He's number one. It's like LeBron. He's in my eyes, at least, whether you want to disagree, LeBron is number one to me. So what can you get after being number one? Like he's scoring champ. He's breaking all these records all time.
Yeah.
What else does he have to offer? I rather, although I would love to have the best podcast in a utopia world, I don't know if that's something that I'd really want for myself, because after I talked to so many great thinkers and I talked to some of the greatest thinkers in this world, or greatest innovators or greatest creators, then who else? I have to wait some years for the people in the younger generation to come up. I'd rather have a sustained podcast where I'm able to make money off of it and continue to build.
Yeah. I feel like the podcast is not the best example though, because like the people who become the best podcasters are not the ones that like, I don't think it's like your goal to become the best podcast. And even if it is, it's like you enjoy the what gets you to being the best is like you just genuinely enjoy the people in the conversation. So it's like, I think that's a fair enough goal for you, I guess, if you want to, but also you're driven by the process probably.
I mean, it's you're not in the pursuit of happiness. You're in pursuit of the process. Mm-hmm. Like I'm pursuing completely changing my situation. Like I'm pursuing becoming from one person that is the producer, editor, marketer, all of the above. Yeah. To creating a team. Yeah. And how great of a story could that be if I go from one person to 10 to 15 people to eventually creating a company, or eventually creating a public speaking avenue for myself. Is that being an author?
Story drive you, like the part of like when you tell people?
Oh my God.
Like, yeah.
Listen, I've wanted to explain what I see or what I've been experiencing within these past like 2 to 3 years since living to the city, but I just know it's not the time yet. I would love to sit there. I'm saving that for that chance that I do get on my website where somebody presses book and they want to book me for a speaking event. That's where I drop it. I'm saving it for that. And even if I never drop it, maybe there'll be one day where it's like, listen, this is you need other people to hear this. Mm-hmm. I promise the respect would go way higher. Like subconsciously, maybe I get a message from God and an intake from God is like, listen, you need to say this on a podcast. You need to say this here in the event that you don't get that. But I'm incredibly inspired by my story and people around me that either one don't believe in me or either they do believe in me.
That shit is real.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
But it's something I eventually want to share one day. Mm-hmm. It's something
I'm gonna have to get it out of you off camera.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're gonna talk about some stuff.
Okay. Yeah. I'll let you hear it. Yeah. Before. It might not be refined, but I'll let you hear it before.
Yeah, I'd love to.
Speaking of author, speaking of creating a book.
Are we past time?
Are we past time?
If you could wrap in like 5, that'd be
okay.
Wrap in 5?
Right. Yeah.
I'll lead with this last question. You've wanted to become an author. Mm-hmm. Why? Why do you want to write a book? What inspired it?
I wouldn't even say I want to write a book, but I would say that I just love playing with ideas. I'm with somebody in my life. I'll talk to somebody and like they'll say something to me. I'll disagree with it, and people will be, and I'll hold firm on my. I'll be like, oh, this is why I feel this way, and this is how it is, and like I just like. People are like, why are you getting defensive? Like, I'm not getting defensive. I just love debating things. I love talking about ideas and refining ideas until they reach a point where they're like ready to present to the world. I was a philosophy major or whatever. So it's like, you know, my brain was kind of trained and I enjoyed that type of discussion. And like, I like having, but also probably the biggest part of why I want to be an author is the lifestyle of an author. For me, it's like being able to wake up and have goals or just like deadlines that are like, month deadline instead of daily deadlines, and waking up and being able to have practices instead of like firm, this is what I'm doing today. Like, I love that shit.
Yeah.
And I love the journey of personal development. I love how there's never an end goal, and being able to connect with people and just having an impact through ideas. Like, I love that. And yeah, the schedule part is like a big thing for me too. Like, and like, picture the life of an author versus like somebody who, like a lawyer. Like, I don't want to be a lawyer, bro. I'm glad that's at the end of the podcast. My clients can be like, what do you mean you don't want to be a lawyer? But
I'm gonna definitely ask you more questions about that off camera. But
yeah,
I guess we'll wrap this up.
Yeah,
thank you for coming on.
I'm excited to chase it all. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to think about this stuff in a way that is. I'm glad that you were on the other side of these ideas I got to voice for the first time. You know what I mean?
Thank you, brother.
Yeah, it got me excited, a lot to think about, and this really helped me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even when you're the incredible, successful lawyer, producer, lawyer, you are always welcome on the 1% podcast.
Let's go.
You're always welcome. So
Even
in the future, yeah. Even bro, even once you're fucking successful, bro, always welcome.
I'm gonna start a show that's very similar to this in the next year or 2 years.
Okay.
After I build this producer brand up,
I'd love to be.
And then you're gonna be on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't wait to be on the other side, brother.
It's a pleasure to talk to you, bro.
As always, thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for showing support. This is the 1% podcast. I'm out.